Milo Lu was notorious in the circle as a die-hard wife lover. For me, he turned down a family marriage alliance and doted on me relentlessly for 3 whole years. Yet at his bachelor party right before our wedding, his first love asked, "If I crash the wedding and steal you away, will you go with me?" And he replied earnestly, "Yes." Fighting back tears, I shot a text to my billionaire bestie. "Can you pick me up from here in the shortest time possible?" 7 minutes later, my bestie showed up, the wheels of her car practically sparking from how fast she'd driven. "I've told you a million times, with your looks and personality, you ought to marry into an old money family and live a life of luxury. My brother's tall, fair and gorgeous, and my dad's still a total silver fox. Take your pick." The wedding date was drawing near, so Milo's childhood buddies threw him a wild bachelor bash. Everyone in his inner circle knew how head over heels Milo was for me. If I wasn't with him, he'd definitely head home before 10 o'clock sharp, never caring whether everyone else was having a good time or not. That's why this time they'd warmly invited me along too. But the moment I stepped inside, I sensed something was off. The crowd greeted me enthusiastically enough, but they kept sneaking glances at Milo, exchanging subtle winks. I had no clue what was going on. Once everyone had taken their seats, a short-haired girl arrived fashionably late. "Sorry I'm late, traffic was a nightmare." Tall and slender, her voice was crisp and upbeat. The Milo sitting beside me froze instantly. It was the first time I'd ever seen someone look like their heart had skipped a beat. The girl held out a hand to me with a bright smile. "So you're the soon-to-be bride? Nice to meet you. I'm Nora you." The second I heard that name, everything clicked into place. This was the first love Milo had been crazy about for 5 years. Back in the day, so the stories went, Milo wasn't the composed man he was now. He'd chased her like a man possessed. He'd laid out 10,000 roses for her downstairs. He'd set off 100 meters of fireworks for her on the beach. His entire youth had been nothing but her. But 3 years ago she'd packed her bags without a second thought and gone abroad to study, chasing after another guy. That was exactly when I'd met Milo. It had been at a cocktail party. Through the hazy, flickering lights, Milo had walked straight toward me. I'd only had half a glass of wine, yet I felt drunk out of my mind. I'd scrambled to ask my friends around me for every bit of information about him. When my friends had pushed me right in front of him, I'd been so nervous my tongue had tied itself in knots. "My name's Willow Chu. Mr. Lu, may I ask your surname?" Loud laughter had erupted all around us. The frown that had been etched on Milo's face for months had finally smoothed out in that moment. After we got together, Milo had poured every ounce of his tenderness into me. He remembered every single thing I loved to eat and every single thing I hated. No matter how late I worked overtime, he'd insisted on coming to pick me up personally. Every holiday without fail, I'd receive a gift he'd put his heart and soul into picking out. He'd posted photos of me on his social media and introduced me to every single one of his relatives and friends. Even his friends had started to envy me. One woman plants the tree, another gets to enjoy the shade. Willow Chu, you really hit the jackpot. Milo chased the hardest-to-get girl around and polished his dating skills to perfection. Now you're reaping all the benefits. I'd never let those words get to me. Because they'd all said that, in terms of both looks and personality, I was nothing like that girl. I was nobody's replacement. And more than anything else, I'd felt it deep down in my bones, Milo loved me. After 3 years of passionate love, he'd proposed to me without hesitation. I'd thought our love was finally going to bloom and bear fruit. But just when everything seemed perfect, reality dealt me a crushing blow. Nora, you plopped down casually right next to me. She pulled a bottle of perfume out of her bag and handed it to me. A wedding present. The scent's super sophisticated, I've been using it for 7 or 8 years and never switched to anything else. She smiled, her eyes crinkling into little crescent moons. I had to admit she was poised, tactful and incredibly charismatic. Even her wedding gift was for me, not for Milo. I accepted the gift and thanked her. Then she took out her phone and added me on social media. "If you ever get bullied, you have to come tell me, okay? Milo and I grew up together like siblings, but I'm definitely not on the in-laws side. I'll always have your back." Everyone around us clapped and cheered. Atta girl, still as sassy and loyal as ever, our queen bee. Nora, you paused for a second, then looked past me at Milo, who was sitting on my other side. "Hey, what's with you? 3 years apart and you've become so quiet all of a sudden?" The crowd went back to drinking, chatting and watching the drama unfold. But every single eye was glued to the three of us, afraid of missing a single second of the showdown. Milo's ears turned bright red, plain as day. He didn't even dare to look at her. He just clutched his wine glass and forced a laugh. It's not that I'm quiet. I'm just out of practice talking to you, that's all. We've grown apart. Nora grinned. So it's my fault for not keeping in touch these past 3 years, huh? She held up her wine glass to him. Then how about we start talking more often from now on? Milo glanced at me then said, I'm a total henpecked husband. From now on if you want to contact me, you'll have to go through one extra step. Check in with my wife first. They clinked their glasses together. No hidden meanings, no secret code, just two people being upfront and honest. And yet, sitting right there between them, I felt a heavy, suffocating lump in my throat. Maybe it was because, after 3 years together, I knew Milo's body language like the back of my hand. Tonight he was way too tense. Drinks were downed, songs were sung, and drinking games were played. As the party wound down, everyone was pretty drunk. Milo lost a round of finger-guessing to Nora and chose truth over dare. Nora, who'd been the picture of poise all night, suddenly let her playful, spoiled side show. She tilted her head to the side, her eyes hazy with alcohol, and asked Milo in a coquettish tone, If I crash your wedding and steal you away, will you go with me? The second the question left her lips, the already rowdy crowd erupted into catcalls and cheers. Finally, you two have stopped pretending after all this time. That's the juicy stuff we've been waiting for. Spit it out, will you go with her or not? Milo's eyes were flushed red from the alcohol. He stared straight at her, his gaze swirling with a million unspoken emotions. And he replied earnestly, yes. The crowd went absolutely wild. Damn it. I knew it. Crash the wedding. Crash the wedding. Crash the wedding. The deafening cheers drew the attention of everyone in the venue. Sitting between them, I felt like I could barely breathe. My hands had started to shake uncontrollably. I had no idea how to face this awkward, humiliating mess. I made up an excuse about going to the bathroom and fled the scene. Fighting back tears, I shot a text to my bestie Clara Ling. Clara called me right away. What's wrong? Did those jerks bully you? No, don't ask right now, just. Can you come get me? I felt like I was seconds away from breaking down and sobbing. The second Clara heard the tremor in my voice, she lost her cool. Her tone was so loud and urgent she sounded like a raging bull. Stay right there. I'm on my way. 10 minutes. No, make that 7. It's not that urgent, really. Drive slowly, okay? Be careful. Quit telling me what to do. 7 minutes later, Clara Ling pulled up in her Bugatti, tearing into the parking lot like a bat out of hell. The wheels were practically sparking from how fast she'd raced over. The second I saw her, I lost all control. My eyes welled up with tears instantly. Clara took my hand in hers, her voice tight with anger. What did you idiots do to her? Milo Lu, are you brain dead? Can't you see how upset she is? Clara Ling was a bona fide billionaire heiress, rich, sharp-tongued, and oozing with confidence. The second she showed up, she instantly put the entire crowd in their place. Her eyes landed on Nora and they turned icy cold, sharp as a blade. Well. Look who's here stirring up trouble. Nora stood up and tried to take my hand, smiling at me like we were the best of friends. We were just playing a silly game. Did we take it too far? I'm such a klutz, I've never hung out with someone as sweet and delicate as her before. I totally misread the vibe. My bad. Clara yanked me behind her, shielding me from Nora like a mother bear protecting her cub. Don't you dare touch her. You're not a klutz, you're just playing dumb. By this point Milo had sobered up a little. He rubbed his throbbing temples, stood up and said, Willow's tired. I should take her home now. Clara let out a scoffing laugh. I'm already here. Who needs you? Just stay here and keep playing the fool. The crowd stood around awkwardly, watching as Clara helped me gather my things. She kept muttering under her breath the whole time she was packing. I've told you 100 times, with your looks and personality, you should marry into an old money family and live like a princess. But no, you just had to go and suffer with those newly rich upstarts. That whole crowd's nothing but backstabbers and two-faced fakes. You're way too pure for that world. Milo's family was worth 9 figures on paper at least. A 9-figure net worth and still labeled newly rich. It was a pretty niche insult. But coming from her, no one dared to say a word in protest. Once Clara had finished packing my stuff, she picked up my handbag. She spotted the fancy-looking perfume bottle inside, didn't even bother asking where it came from, and tossed it onto the floor without a second thought. Some outdated junk. How dare she give this to you as a gift? The perfume bottle rolled across the floor and stopped right at Nora's feet. Nora's face turned ashen. She was clearly mortified. Clara grabbed my arm and dragged me toward the door. Milo chased after us, catching up at the entrance and grabbing hold of my wrist. Willow, don't be mad. That question came out of nowhere and the mood was so chaotic I just blanked out. I stared into Milo's eyes, the same eyes that had once looked at me with so much love and adoration. In that moment I felt completely and utterly drained. So you're saying it was an instinctive reaction? That deep down you really do want to be with her? Of course not. Willow, it was just a game. If I'd said no, she would have been so embarrassed in front of all our friends. You were so worried about saving her face that you didn't even care about trampling on mine? I was just giving her a graceful answer. But what I'm giving you is a marriage, a lifetime together. I wrenched my wrist out of his grasp, laughing bitterly through my tears. So I should be grateful for that? Milo Lou, after 3 years together, I never realized you were such a master at sitting on the fence. Just then Clara pulled the car around, honking the horn repeatedly to hurry me up. Milo reached for me again. Let me drive you home, please. We can talk this through properly on the way. Clara frowned, rolling her eyes so hard I thought they'd get stuck in the back of her head. If you've got that much free time on your hands, why don't you drive your little BYD around and pick up some rideshare fares? Might knock some sense into you. Milo froze, speechless with humiliation. For the first time ever, his fancy green plate Bentley felt like a slap in the face. I pulled open the car door and slid into the passenger seat. I turned around to look at Milo one last time. Let's call off the wedding. Both of us need to take some time and really think about what we want. On the drive back, I scrolled through my social media feed. I noticed, Nora, you had posted 2 updates. The first one read, "Truly nothing like me at all. But don't you think that makes it all the more obvious he's hiding something?" The second, "If you spent these 3 years trying to prove I was wrong for letting you go, then congratulations, you succeeded." The emotions I'd bottled up all night came crashing down in an instant. I burst into tears, sobbing uncontrollably. I felt so stupid for pouring my heart and soul into our relationship for 3 whole years. I'd thought Milo's doting, attentive care for me had stemmed from love. Never in a million years did I imagine it had all been a show for her. I'd just been a pawn in their twisted, high-stakes game of push and pull. She wasn't the type to dish out sweet, comforting words. Her go-to move was always to cut straight to solving the problem. Quit crying. There are plenty more men out there. Just pick another one. My brother's tall, fair and gorgeous, and my dad's still a total silver fox. Take your pick. I cried until I had no more tears left, then her ridiculous line made me snort laugh through my sniffles. Clara Ling, am I that useless? That I even need you to stand up for me like this at a time like this? Clara patted my head gently. Don't be silly. Everyone has their own strengths. My mom passed away when we were little, so it's just been the 3 of us guys. None of us are exactly good at expressing our feelings. I've been a rebellious pain in the neck since I was a kid, so I don't get many chances to actually be useful to anyone. But you're just naturally kind and soft-hearted. Every day spent with you feels like a breath of fresh air. And you're the best injection giver in the entire city. When I was stuck in the hospital, I never would have gotten through it without you by my side every day, putting up with my nonsense and cheering me up. Her words were a great comfort. My shattered self-esteem pieced itself back together bit by bit. Clara grinned. Serious question, are you actually considering marrying into our family now? She'd asked me this 100 times before. I'd first met Clara when she'd been admitted to the hospital for treatment. The hospital director had been her attending physician, and I'd been his assistant. But because I had a gentle way with words and my injections never hurt, Clara had thrown a tantrum and insisted that I be her doctor instead. That's how our rock-solid friendship had been forged. Back then I'd already been dating Milo, and Clara had spent every single day kicking herself over it. Why couldn't I have gotten sick a few months earlier? Then you would have still been single, and I could have brought you home to be my sister-in-law. Poor Jude Ling, Clara's older brother, who'd flown all the way back from abroad on vacation just to visit her. In the hospital. He'd turned ashen-faced every time she'd rambled on about this. Thanks to her relentless nagging, Jude and I had started off on the absolute wrong foot from day one. Every time we ran into each other by chance, I'd duck my head in embarrassment, while he'd lift his chin awkwardly, and we'd both pretend we hadn't seen each other. Not long ago, Jude had finished his studies overseas and taken a job at our hospital. The arrival of this tall, intelligent, ice-cold heartthrob had caused an absolute uproar throughout the entire hospital. The nurses and female doctors would make up any excuse to walk past his office multiple times a day. Even the number of staff taking sick leave had dropped drastically. As for me, I'd taken to holding my bladder at work. All just to avoid walking down the hallway too often and running into him constantly. When I didn't respond, Clara's eyes lit up with excitement. "You're not saying anything, does that mean you're actually thinking about it?" "Well, have you made up your mind? My brother. Or my dad?" My lips twitched. "If those are the only two options, I'd rather pick your dad." Clara practically vibrated with joy. "Yes, that's exactly what I was hoping you'd say. My dad's older, so he'll pass away sooner. You can inherit his fortune early, and we can hang out with handsome guys every day. My brother's no good. He has a strict routine, lives a healthy lifestyle, and has an insanely strong body. I'm afraid you won't be able to keep up with him." Me. The next afternoon, Clara showed up at the hospital right on time to pick me up from work. As we passed Jude's office, she grabbed my arm and dragged me inside. "Hey bro, are you working overtime tonight?" Jude looked up from his computer screen. He stood at 6'3" with sharp, defined brow bones and a straight, prominent nose. His eyes were dark, cold, and utterly captivating. The kind of breathtakingly handsome face that made you want to curse the creator for playing favorites. Jude's gaze flicked over to me, cool and indifferent. "No." The second he spoke, Dr. Wong, who was sitting across from him, looked up in surprise. "Dr. Ling, I thought you were..." Jude shot him a sharp, warning glare. Dr. Wong froze mid-sentence, then quickly clamped his mouth shut. Clara pressed on. "Then are you going out for dinner later?" Jude looked like he was mulling it over, feigning a touch of reluctance before saying, "Sure." With that, he stood up abruptly and started tidying up the papers on his desk. Clara beamed. "Perfect. Since you're going out for dinner, I'm taking Willow back to our place for a meal. It'll be way less awkward for her with you out of the house." Jude's movements froze. He slowly lifted his head to stare at Clara, his eyes glinting with a murderous rage that came out of nowhere. "Then why don't you just take her out to eat somewhere else?" His expression was thunderous. "The food at our place isn't even that good." Their family cook, Aunt Wong, had originally been hired to tend to the garden. But as she'd gotten older and couldn't handle digging in the dirt anymore, she'd asked to switch to cooking instead. Her food was, well, let's just say it was very healthy. Clara stood on her tiptoes and leaned in to whisper in his ear. "I'm taking her home to introduce her to Dad. Hee. You're gonna have a new stepmom soon. Excited? Surprised?" Jude slowly straightened up to his full height, his gaze fixed on Clara like he was staring down a corpse. A few seconds later, he grabbed Clara by the scruff of her neck and dragged her toward the CT scan room. "Come on. Let's get your head scanned. I must have accidentally removed a few brain cells when you were in the hospital last time." Clara's protests echoed down the hallway as he hauled her away. "I'm perfectly sane. Bro, let me list the 3 amazing benefits of having a new stepmom. First, once Dad gets remarried, he'll stop nagging us about getting married every single day. Second, I'll get my new stepmom to put in a good word for me with Dad, so he'll hand over the company to me. Then you can keep being your fancy Dr. Ling and I'll finally get to be CEO. It's a win-win for everyone. Third, my new stepmom's young, beautiful, and has an amazing figure. If everything goes well, we'll have a baby brother by next year. The family legacy will be secured, you won't have to bother having kids, and you can even go get a vasectomy." Ow. Stop pinching me. That hurts. It hurts so bad. As we drove out of the hospital parking lot, a familiar car zoomed past us in a flash. I craned my neck to look back. Was that Milo Lou? Clara looked completely unfazed. "Nope. You're seeing things. He's probably busy pouring his heart out to his precious first love in some fancy hotel bed right now. He wouldn't spare you a second thought." I'd always prided myself on being level-headed and composed. I'd even thought that when we broke up, I'd do it with grace and dignity. But after hearing her words, any trace of that dignity flew straight out the window. I blocked Milo's number on every single one of my social media accounts and deleted all his contact info. Out of sight, out of mind. Jude arrived home shortly after we did. He stormed straight into his room to change clothes, his face still set in a deep, dark scowl the entire time. He didn't emerge until Aunt Wong brought dinner to the table. The second Clara saw him, she did a double take. Are you out of your mind? Why are you dressed like that at home? Jude sat primly at the dining table, wearing a perfectly tailored suit that hugged his frame, his hair styled immaculately. He looked like a cold, ruthless soul straight out of a romance novel. This is how I dress every day, he ground out through gritted teeth. Clara's lips twitched violently several times, but she didn't dare say a word. Just then Mr. Ling, Clara and Jude's dad walked in. He greeted me warmly, then took a seat at the table. Jude glanced at his dad, who was also dressed in a sharp suit and tie. Aren't you gonna change out of your suit? I thought you always hated wearing formal clothes at home and would rush to put on your old man's shirt the second you walked in the door. Mr. Ling looked from me to his sharply dressed son, then grinned cheerfully. It's not every day you kids bring a friend home for dinner. I wanted to look presentable. Jude's lips twitched violently, mirroring Clara's earlier expression. Dinner finally started. Jude picked up his bowl of rice, his posture stiff and haughty. Move the pork knuckle and pig's feet away from me. They're far too greasy. Aunt Wong hurried to do as he asked. Jude picked at a piece of green vegetables delicately, taking tiny, refined bites. Mr. Ling stared at him in confusion. I thought you hated vegetables and would never touch them unless there was meat on your plate? Jude's movements faltered for a split second. He glanced at his dad, who was currently cutting into a steak with a knife and fork in a steady, methodical way. You always used to eat steak with chopsticks before, didn't you? Mr. Ling was left speechless. I quickly jumped in to defuse the tension. Chopsticks are way more versatile than a knife and fork, honestly. I sometimes eat steak with chopsticks too. The awkward atmosphere eased a little. Jude pressed on, determined to ruin the mood. Dad, you used to love eating chopped chili fish heads so much you'd spit out the fish bones all over the table. Will you shut up for once? Mr. Ling snapped, slamming his chopsticks down on the table and storming off. I'm not hungry anymore. You kids eat without me. Clara buried her head in her bowl, shoveling rice into her mouth quickly, too scared to say a single word or ask any questions. It was Aunt Wong who finally broke the suffocating silence. There's a car that's been parked outside our gate for ages. I wonder who it's waiting for. Looks like a BYD. The second Jude heard that, he shot up from his seat. You guys finish eating. I'll go check it out. A moment later we heard his voice drifting up from downstairs. Uncle Zhang, go shoo that green plate car away. Tell him no one in this house ordered a rideshare and he's in the wrong neighborhood. And give him $500 to go buy himself a bowl of noodles or something. Must have been waiting here all night for nothing, poor guy. I leaned over to whisper to Clara. Your brother might be a little weird, but he's actually a decent person deep down, isn't he? Clara. Clara Ling was worried that Milo Lu would go to her house to harass me, so she asked me to stay at her place for a few days. Jude Ling didn't object at all. He even took the initiative to give up his own room for me, saying it had the best sunlight. He moved himself to the guest room next to his dad's bedroom instead. Clara Ling clicked her tongue in amazement. My brother never lets me bring girls home, let alone let them touch his stuff. I even suspected he's a bit misogynistic. But look at him being this lenient with you. Do you know what this means? What does it mean? I asked. Jude Ling's footsteps as he was coming downstairs slowed down abruptly. It means those two lovebirds are absolutely outrageous. They even managed to stir a shred of sympathy in a cold-blooded creature like my brother. Clara huffed indignantly. If you don't know how to speak nicely, then shut up, Jude snarled. Then he stomped downstairs with a loud thud-thud-thud. Jude Ling's room was spotlessly clean, with a faint woody scent lingering in the air. I opened the window to let in some fresh air. A gust of wind blew the papers off his bookshelf. I bent down to pick them up. One by one they were all the medical records I'd written for Clara Ling 3 years ago. At the very bottom was a piece of paper with Jude Ling's handwriting on it. His calligraphy was elegant and refined. Chu, Affiliated Hospital of Tsinghua University. There seemed to be no emotion in those words at all. Yet somehow the entire page felt brimming with restrained feelings. It was as if I'd caught a glimpse of some earth-shattering secret. My hands trembling, I tidied the papers up and put them back where they belonged. Then I crept back to bed and lay there stiffly. I told myself over and over not to overthink, not to overthink. But the room was filled with Jude's presence everywhere. When I closed my eyes, his face kept flashing before me like a movie reel. I tossed and turned all night, shamefully unable to fall asleep. The next morning we gathered around the dining table for breakfast. I had huge dark circles under my eyes. So did Jude Ling. Mr. Ling looked so exhausted he seemed to have aged 10 years overnight. Clara Ling's eyes widened in shock. What happened to all of you? None of you slept well last night. I mumbled awkwardly. I guess I just couldn't get used to sleeping in a different bed. Jude Ling chimed in. Me too. Can't sleep in a new bed. Mr. Ling glared at Jude listlessly. You couldn't sleep in a new bed, so you had to torture your old man? I don't know what got into you last night. Every time I got up to use the bathroom, you'd pop out of nowhere and stare at me. You scared me half to death. I didn't get a wink of sleep. Jude retorted confidently. What kind of normal person gets up to pee 8 times a night? Mr. Ling's lips trembled with anger. I'm old. My bladder's weak. Happy now. With that, he slammed his chopsticks down on the table and stormed off in humiliation. That made it 2 meals in a row that he'd left without eating a bite. Too angry to swallow anything. No wonder he stayed so slim. Clara Ling munched on a steamed bun and said, Let my brother give you a lift to work later. I'm not gonna go with you. I quickly declined politely. No need to trouble Dr. Ling. I can just take a taxi by myself. Jude stood up and said, It's on the way anyway. I'll give you a ride these days. Then he pulled out his phone, his ears turning bright red. Let's add each other on WeChat. I was just about to figure out how to turn him down again when Clara piped up. Really, bro? You're giving a colleague a lift to work and you need to add her on WeChat just to split the gas money. That made sense. I'd been overthinking it. I quickly pulled out my phone, added him on WeChat and transferred 600 yuan to him. Is this enough? Jude didn't say a word. He just stared at Clara quietly, looking like he'd lost all his strength and will to argue. On the way to work, Jude drove with his usual icy expression. To kill the awkward silence, I pulled out my phone and started scrolling through my social media feed. What I saw next made my jaw drop to the floor. Last night, this ice-cold Dr. Ling had posted an update. We added an extra pair of chopsticks and a bowl at home. Cute. The photo attached showed the big bowl of rice in front of me. It also casually included a shot of my right hand holding a pair of chopsticks. Even though the image quality was compressed, it was still obvious. That bowl of rice had been packed down extremely tightly. I had a big appetite, but it was my first time eating at someone else's house, so I'd been too embarrassed to ask for a second helping. So I'd pressed the rice down hard in the bowl to fit more in. I wanted to crawl into a hole and die from embarrassment right then and there. But what was even more shocking was the comment section. I could see the messages from our mutual friends. Nora, you had commented almost instantly. Is it? Who is that? Milo Lu had apparently recognized my bracelet. He'd left several frantic comments in a row. She's at your house? What the hell does this post mean? Her, I'm waiting at your front door to pick her up. You're dead meat. Just you wait. I slowly turned my head to look at Jude. Dr. Ling, why did you post something like that? Jude looked completely unfazed and said, People usually think I'm cold and unfriendly. I just wanted to show them I can be a warm and hospitable person. I was a little speechless. Dr. Ling, how do you know Nora Yu and Milo Lu? Nora Yu is a friend of a classmate of mine. 3 years ago when I went to study abroad she came too. Then one day this Milo Lu added me on WeChat, rambled on about a bunch of nonsense and asked me to take good care of her. It suddenly clicked into place. They'd said that back then Nora Yu had gone abroad chasing after another guy. I finally realized the truth. The guy Nora Yu went abroad to chase. Was it you? Jude suddenly turned his head to look at me, his eyes filled with unprecedented earnestness. I have absolutely no relationship with her. We're not even friends. I quickly pieced everything together in my mind. So, over these past 3 years, you've been able to see every single post Milo Lu made on his social media. That's right. I remembered the first time we'd met in the hospital. Jude had stared at me for a long time looking stunned. It wasn't until Clara had let out a scream loud enough to wake the dead that he'd finally snapped out of it. So, The first time we met at the hospital, you already recognized me, didn't you? I asked. No. The order is wrong. Jude said as he kept driving, every word piercing straight into my heart. I met you first at the hospital. Later I got Milo's friend request. And that's when I saw you again in his social media post. If I hadn't seen you in his posts, I never would have had the patience to listen to his nonsense, and I never would have kept him on my WeChat contacts until now. All this information exploded in my head like fireworks. But in the end only one thought stuck with me. It meant that even though Milo had already been with me back then, he still hadn't been able to let go of his first love. He'd even humbled himself enough to send those ridiculous messages to the guy his first love had a crush on. My eyes stung with unshed tears. I didn't say a word for a long time. Jude silently handed me a tissue. Don't be sad. There are plenty more men out there. Just pick another one. I sniffled and asked. Would it be okay if I could see the messages he sent you? Jude froze for a few seconds like he'd turned to stone. Then he said firmly. No. It's not okay. It was fine if he didn't want to show me. But why did he look like he was about to be stripped naked in public, his face burning with shame? For the next few days I stayed at Clara Ling's house every night and went to work with Jude Ling every morning. Keeping busy with all the hustle and bustle, the painful heartbreak of the breakup passed by in a flash. Jude Ling was like a caveman slowly emerging from his shell. Not only had he learned to care about others, he'd even started learning how to cook. This made Aunt Wong extremely anxious, afraid that she was going to lose her job soon. Another victim was Dr. Wong, who sat across from Jude at work. Jude had suddenly stopped working overtime. Dr. Wong was left to hold down the fort all by himself, and his hairline was visibly receding more and more each day. Clara Ling clicked her tongue in approval. The most socially awkward person in our family has been getting more and more normal lately. But I thought he was still a little weird. For example, before going to bed one night, he'd asked me a few questions in the same tone he used to check up on his patients. How have you been feeling these past few days? Have you gotten used to sleeping here yet? I nodded and said, I'm used to it now. And then he turned around and posted another update on his social media. She's finally gotten used to sleeping in my bed. Cute. The photo attached showed my clothes hanging on the headboard of his bed. By the time I saw the comment section, all the messages had probably been too vulgar, because they'd all been neatly replaced with, comment has been deleted, comment has been deleted. I stared at him, dumbfounded. Dr. Ling. Was this post also to show everyone how warm and hospitable you are? Jude peeled a pomelo for me, looking completely calm, and said, No. This one was just to rub salt in their wounds. The first person to get completely salted was Nora. She'd probably stayed up all night seething with jealousy. As soon as the sky started to lighten, she showed up at Jude Ling's front door, peeking around like a thief. She wanted to see with her own eyes who this her was, the woman Jude had been posting about, the woman who'd made her green with envy. But she had the worst luck ever. Clara Ling, who was usually a night owl and slept until noon, had gotten up bright and early that day for some reason. When their eyes met, Clara Ling's smile turned ferocious. You turned down the road to heaven, but you just had to barge through the gates of hell. She'd been dying to punch someone for a long time. She'd just been holding back because they lived in a civilized society, and it wouldn't look good to beat someone up in broad daylight. Clara Ling slowly rolled up her sleeves. Then she took a deep breath and let out a blood-curdling scream. Thief. Stop that thief. And with that she charged at Nora and started throwing punches left and right. Aunt Wong heard the commotion, stumbled out of bed half asleep, grabbed a broom and joined in the fray. As Nora's screams got louder and more shrill, Aunt Wong finally regained a little bit of her sanity. Do you think we're beating her a little too hard? Clara Ling grunted. If we don't beat her hard enough, she'll never learn her lesson. Aunt Wong, your cooking skills are terrible and your fighting skills are even worse. Aunt Wong's eyes widened at that. She suddenly thought about her precarious job situation. She could be fired at any moment. Desperate to prove that she was still useful and irreplaceable, Aunt Wong rolled up her sleeves and started swinging her broom with a vengeance, gritting her teeth as she attacked. By the time the security guards arrived, it took them a lot of effort to pull Aunt Wong away from Nora. Nora was covered in bruises and welts, her face swollen up like a pig's head, and she was sobbing so hard she could barely breathe. It just so happened that I was the one who treated Nora when she came to the hospital for her injuries the next day. Her emotions had just calmed down a little. But the second she spotted the bracelet on my wrist, the very same one in Jude Ling's social media post, she lost her temper all over again. So it's you. It was you all along. You got close to him just to get back at me, didn't you? I pressed her down firmly. Stay still during the examination. The equipment is extremely expensive, you can't afford to pay for it if you break it. I accidentally pressed down on her fresh wounds. She howled in pain, screaming loud enough to wake the dead. After she'd caught her breath, she finally quieted down. And her rationality kicked back in just as quickly. Knowing I was an easy target, she fixed me with a cold sneer. You must have been absolutely crushed when you heard Milo lose answer that night. You need to understand something, you and I will never be the same. I'm the girl he chased for 5 years, the one he couldn't have no matter how hard he tried. But you threw yourself at him. The difference in how he sees us is like heaven and earth. First love is always the most unforgettable. Even if you two had gotten married, I would have stayed in his heart forever. She was clever, every word she said was like a knife, aimed straight at my heart. But the truth was I didn't care anymore. When she saw that I just kept checking her over without changing my expression, she leaned in closer, her voice dropping to a menacing whisper as she turned up the heat. And do you know what happened after you left that night? He drove me home. And he stayed over at my place. While you were tossing and turning in bed heartbroken, he was sound asleep right next to me. That's the man you loved for 3 whole years. Speaking of which, even though I caused you some pain, you should actually thank me. I opened your eyes and let you see him for who he really is, didn't I? I frowned, my expression turning grave. Nora, you smirked triumphantly. What's wrong? Weren't you acting so calm and collected just a second ago? Can't keep up the act anymore. I shook my head. After a moment of silence, I printed out a report and handed it to her. The ultrasound shows a space-occupying lesion in your right breast. We can't rule out breast cancer. I recommend you get a core needle biopsy as soon as possible for a definitive diagnosis. Nora Yu's smile froze instantly. What did you say? Are you trying to scare me? You're overthinking it. I don't have that kind of time to waste. I stood up, cleaned and disinfected the equipment, and threw away the used supplies, my movements steady and my emotions completely in check. I even remembered to hand her the fruit basket on the table. This was sent by the people who accidentally hurt you. Don't forget to take it with you. Speaking of which, even though they caused you some pain, you should actually thank them. They're the reason you found out about this illness early, didn't they? Nora Yu stared at me dumbfounded. Her hands went limp. The entire fruit basket slipped from her grasp and crashed to the floor, spilling its contents everywhere. The day Milo Lu came to the hospital to find me was a rare, sunny day. It was lunch break, and for a brief moment the hospital was quiet and peaceful. Jude Ling saw that I was alone and said he was feeling chest tightness and palpitations, begging me to give him a checkup. Without even asking if I was willing, he shut the door behind him, took off his white coat and lay down on the examination bed. Then he started unbuttoning his shirt one button at a time. He always looked lean in his clothes. But with his shirt unbuttoned, I realized that beneath that jersey shirt hid a well-defined muscular chest. When he saw that I was just sitting there not moving, he urged me on. What's wrong, Dr. Chu? Let's get started. I said earnestly, for a chest examination, there's no need to unbutton your shirt all the way down to your abdomen. Jude Ling let out an oh. Slowly he fastened the lower buttons of his shirt, hiding his perfect 8-pack abs from view. I disinfected the equipment, applied some gel, and when my hand touched his chest muscles, his body trembled slightly. His breathing became uneven and ragged. Dr. Ling, don't be nervous. Just relax. I smiled at him. Holding the ultrasound probe, I slowly moved it across his chest. The room was eerily quiet. Jude Ling's eyelashes fluttered gently and his cheeks gradually turned pink. All bark and no bite. Just then, Dr. Wong from the next office burst in without knocking. Dr. Chu? Are you in here? The second he saw his usually ice-cold, scholarly desk mate lying half-naked next to me, Dr. Wong closed his eyes in agony. Jude Ling sat up quickly and buttoned his shirt back up, his face instantly returning to its usual cold, impassive expression. I struggled to hold back my laughter and asked, "Is there something you need, Dr. Wong?" Dr. Wong kept his eyes tightly shut as he said, "There's a green plate Bentley parked downstairs, loaded with flower bouquets. It looks like it's here for you, Dr. Chu. I froze for a second. Walking over to the window and looking down, I saw that it was indeed Milo Lu. Over the past few days he'd been going crazy trying to find me everywhere. He'd even gone so far as to book an appointment with me at the hospital. After listening to his tearful, dramatic confession, I just suggested calmly that he go to the psychiatry department next door to get his head checked. Clearly he still hadn't given up. At that moment he was standing downstairs, surrounded by a sea of colorful flowers behind him. When Milo Lu saw me through the window, he immediately launched into another tearful, heartfelt speech. I was so drunk that night. By the time I sobered up, I'd already made a terrible mistake. I've been regretting it every single second of every day ever since. Later, when I calmed down and thought about it, I realized it was just my 5-year obsession with Nora you talking. Once I finally got what I thought I wanted, I realized. The person I love the most has always been you. Willow Chu, can you forgive me? Can you give me another chance to chase you? Like I used to. He looked up at me, his eyes filled with desperate longing. Once upon a time, I'd often wondered what Milo Lu had been like when he'd chased Nora Yu, laying out a sea of flowers downstairs for her. Back then he must have been bright and bold, his eyes shining with the shyness and joy of a boy in love. Nothing like the twisted, miserable mess he was now. You can't have your cake and eat it too. I turned to Dr. Wang and said, it's not here for me. This is obviously a case of medical harassment. Go get security down here right away. We need to stop him before he pulls out those banners. If someone takes a photo and posts it online, it'll be a disaster. The city was currently in the running for the National Civilized City Award. At the mention of this, Dr. Wang panicked. He took off running to call security. Before Milo Lu even had a chance to unfurl the banner he'd brought for his grand gesture, a team of security guards swarmed him, pinning him to the ground with their riot forks. Milo Lu struggled frantically, craning his neck to look up at me through the window, begging for help. But the first thing he saw was Jude Ling standing beside me. His eyes turned red with rage and he started shouting insults, his words muffled by the ground. You bastard! You've been plotting this for so long. Just to steal my girl from me. Jude Ling, get down here. If you're a man, you'll come down here and face me like one. His screaming and crying only made him look more like a medical harasser. Dr. Wang yelled, quick! Cover his mouth. Don't let him make any more noise. Within seconds, Milo Lu's mouth was taped shut with medical adhesive tape, and he was dragged off to the security office. I let out a sigh of relief and closed the window. When I turned around, I saw that Jude Ling had unbuttoned his shirt again. He was sitting there looking unsatisfied, his cheeks flushed pink. We didn't finish the examination earlier, he said softly. He took my hand and placed it on his chest. Dr. Chu, can you check if my heart is still racing? Bonus. Jude Ling x Milo Lu's chat history September 23, 2021. You have added Milo Lu as a friend. Jude Ling. Milo Lu, sorry to bother you. My name is Milo Lu and I'm a good friend of Nora Yu's. I was just wondering, how is Nora Yu doing in Germany? Jude Ling. Who is Nora Yu? Milo Lu, you know, the girl who chased you all the way to Germany? Jude Ling. There are too many girls who've done that. I can't tell them apart. If this is not an emergency, I'm deleting you. Goodbye. Milo Lu. Jude Ling, wait a second. Is that you and your girlfriend in your profile picture? Milo Lu, oh yeah. That's me and my girlfriend. 20 minutes later, roughly the amount of time it takes to stalk someone's entire social media feed. Jude Ling. You already have a girlfriend and you're still asking about how another girl is doing? Milo Lu, it's not like that. Today is my birthday and my girlfriend prepared this amazing surprise for me. It's the happiest birthday I've ever had in my life. I'm so happy that I started thinking about how miserable I was when I was chasing Nora Yu, how I lost myself, how she controlled my every mood. Those days were hell. Jude Ling, so what? You're just here to show off your happy relationship and rub it in my face? Milo Lu, hee, I guess I'm just feeling a little sentimental after drinking. I used to hate Nora Yu, resent her even, but now I'm totally over it. I hope she gets everything she wants, that she's happy. I guess when you're surrounded by love, you just want to be nice to the whole world. Cute, Jude Ling, black face, Milo Lu. Okay, I feel better now that I've gotten that off my chest. Let's unfriend each other, dude. Thanks for listening. Jude Ling, wait a minute. Now I'm not feeling so good. Milo Lu, what? Jude Ling, I mean your head isn't in the right place. If you're still worried about how she's doing, that just proves you haven't really moved on from her. Milo Lu, no way. I definitely have moved on. Jude Ling, no. You haven't. Milo Lu. Jude Ling, trust me. You're too close to the situation to see clearly. I'm an outsider looking in and I can tell deep down in your heart the person you love the most is still Nora you. Hey, you mentioned her earlier, what's her name again? Milo Lu, sends photo. This one. Jude Ling, wow. She's beautiful. Really beautiful. Are you sure you're willing to give up on someone this amazing? Milo Lu, if she's so amazing why didn't you say yes when she chased you for so long? Jude Ling, me? Well, I'm not in the best of health if you know what I mean. I don't want to hold any girl back from finding happiness. That's why I've never accepted any of them. Milo Lu, oh man. That sucks. I'm sorry to hear that. Jude Ling, yeah. Which is why I really hope someone as healthy as you will have the courage to go after your happiness. Seeing you and Nora you end up together, that's my biggest wish right now. Milo Lu, but I really love my girlfriend. Jude Ling, no. You're just temporarily touched by her kindness, blinded by the happiness in front of you. Besides, your girlfriend's looks are average to say the least. Any normal person would know who to choose. Milo Lu, average. When I first met her, when she came up to me and talked to me first, my heart literally started beating again. I thought it had stopped working forever. Jude Ling, you see? You just said it yourself, she was the one who made the first move. That's not the same as chasing someone you're truly in love with, is it? By the way, what do you think it was about you that made her want to approach you first? Milo Lu, I don't know. I was in such a bad mood back then, I was miserable to everyone around me. I never thought my cold, distant attitude would actually win her over. Jude Ling, cold and distant. Miserable to everyone. Got it. Milo Lu, wait a second, after talking to you I'm starting to get confused. My head is spinning. Jude Ling, good. Confusion means you've got something buried deep down in your heart. You got this, dude. Stay true to your original feelings. Don't give up on Nora you so easily. Milo Lu, huh? Jude Ling. Don't forget, seeing you two get back together is the one and only wish of this poor helpless guy right here. Milo Lu, alright then,